Welcome again to Transforming Your Relationship. I'm your host, Bonitto Grange, your relationship and life coach. We have some friends here again with us tonight that's going to help us on the topic of what every husband wished their wives knew. So we have Neville Wright, we have Stephen McLeod, and we have Daniel Harper. So some of you might have missed our program last week. So Neville, I'll get you for 1 minute just to let the folks know out there who you are and what you do. And then after that, Stephen and then Daniel.
My name's Neville Wright. So I am married for 13 years, father to two little ones, 4-year-old boy and 8-year-old little girl or a young girl. And I am a former athlete, 3-time Olympian. I am a performance massage therapist. So work in have my own clinic, Right Performance and Therapy. Also work with the Team Canada men's soccer team as well. And then I am also a speed and strength coach. Along with that, a speaker, public speaker, as well too.
No, awesome. So I've known Neville for quite a while, folks, and for him to find the time to come on here tonight, really appreciate that. As you can see, the dumbbells in the background. This is not a dude you want to mess with. He looks small on the screen, but he's a giant in nature, but also got a soft and gentle heart. So appreciate you, Neville, for coming on tonight, and thank you. And Stephen, go ahead.
Okay, he doesn't look small on the screen. All right, my name is Stephen McLeod from Jamaica. I am a book publisher and writer. I have been married for 19 years this year coming. I have 2 kids, a boy and a girl, and they have been my impetus for doing everything. And 19 years of marriage, I have accumulated a bit of experience, gone through a number of seasons that hopefully will give me a bit of insight, that I'll be able to contribute tonight. Hopefully be able to share something that might, help along the way, I could take a little different perspective. Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
All right. Thank you, Stephen. And he's been with us a few times before. Another busy individual. I think he's running on fumes here tonight. So, Stephen, I really appreciate you coming in tonight. I always appreciate your feedback, too. And so we'll go to Daniel, Mr. Harper.
Well, good evening, everyone. So happy to join these gentlemen once again. My name is Daniel Harper. I've been married for 16 years now. I have 4 children, and it's been a great experience being a husband and a father, and very grateful for that. I work with youth that are in the justice system. I also do work as a chaplain, and generally speaking, I love to be engaged in Bible-related topics, discussions, teaching and preaching and things of that nature. And also I'm a church musician as well. So just once again, happy to be on this platform and to share with these gentlemen.
All right. Thank you, Danielle. So, folks, these are all wonderful men of God that's serving the Lord in their own unique and special way, and just being the father of their children and also the priest of their home. And as you know, I've said before to Bonitto Grange here, relationship and life coach. I've been doing this now for probably about 7 years, but actually been doing a couple of sessions in our church for about 10 or 11 years. And, just great insights that we've gained from it. When you find your passion, you just got to keep pursuing it and upgrade yourself to that so that you can be that person that God wants you to be and also make that impact in the world. So I've been married for 36 years, going on 37 now, to a wonderful wife who supports me. And she's amazing. You know what? I would love to have her on here sometime in the future, but she's just not willing to do that. She's behind the scene and she does a good job doing that. So I thank her for her support and everything else. So we're going to have a good time tonight again. So our topic again, for those that's just chiming in, is what husband wished your wives knew. So as you know, in the past, we had the wives that came on for a couple of sessions, what wives wish their husband knew. That was interesting. Now we have the men having their take on that tonight. So we're going to start off with a few questions and then have just a general conversation going forward. So thank you for tuning in, and we appreciate you for listening tonight. So the first one we're going to talk about is it okay for a wife to have a male as a best friend? So this is again what husband wish their wives knew. Is it okay for the wife to have another male friend as a best friend? What would you men want your wives to know about that, or wives in general? And we can start off. Danielle, we'll start off with you, and Neville and Steve can chime in anytime along those lines.
Sure. I guess I couldn't be biased considering that one of my best friends is actually a female. Having said that, my wife is completely aware, so I'm not in trouble at all. But I guess what I would say is, in an instance like that, I believe it's important to make sure that there are appropriate lines drawn. I think that is the main contention or consideration in
Mm-hmm.
this type of situation, because women, when they talk, they just talk, and I think for the most part, I think generally speaking, men are okay with women talking and they're just doing their thing. But it feels a little bit different when you're saying things that are certainly more personal, and that information is being shared with another man about me as a male. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think it depends on the circumstances. What is the extent of relationship, particularly with communication, and drawing lines or ensuring that there's certain barriers, certain standards, certain places that we would not be crossing in engaging in the relationship on that level. So that would be from my perspective.
No, that's great. So boundaries, yeah, needs to be some definitely guidelines here. And I know there's individuals out there might totally not totally agree, but you know what? Every individual have their own perspective on there. Again, I've had another individual as a best friend, but had to meet up with a female part and to have conversations and whatever. But one thing that I've always done to clear myself and just to make sure everything's in the open is my wife exactly know what I'm doing and where I'm going. So there's no communication outside that would make things complicated. Another thing is as a wife, as a best friend, is how much do I tell that individual as a best friend? So how could that become complicated? How could we share? How are we not supposed to share some things if we say we're best friends? I mean, best friends generally share a lot of things together. Not disputing what you've said, Daniel. Right? Just another take at the pitch at the conversation here. Go ahead, Neville or Steve.
Um, yeah, I would say, well, it would be based on, because everyone's relationship is different, right? So I think it would be based
Mm-hmm.
on what your relationship is with your spouse and how comfortable you both are,
Mm-hmm.
and communicating with each other as well too. And I think providing security in the sense of communicating, I guess, what your relationship is with the opposite sex as well too. And then if one feels uncomfortable, like having a discussion with that. But I think
Mm-hmm.
if it comes down to where if it's causing an issue or a rift between you and your spouse, then it's something that you need to well, I mean, you have a discussion, and if you can't get beyond that, then it's something that you're going to have to respect and sever that, but also communicating that with the friend as well too. So
Okay. I'm sure I'm going to get lots of feedback on this one, gentlemen. Go ahead, Stephen.
Okay. Well, I always think things like these are always a case by case basis, but a lot has to do with the dynamics of your partner and the so-called friend. In general, I don't really believe that you can have a female best friend or male best friend. Um, of- well, no, what I should say is the opposite sex, a best friend of the opposite sex.
Okay.
Um, in the sense that, as a general rule, there is a level of intimacy that a best friend occupies, and once you get to that place, if it is in the case of the opposite sex, then you start walking in dangerous territory, and like was previously said, then you're gonna have to start setting up boundaries. And the minute you need to set up boundaries now, then it kind of, to me, it disqualifies the whole notion of a best friend. Because when you have a best friend, you don't really have to draw boundaries. You tend not to. But
Mm-hmm.
because it's someone of the opposite sex, there's certain levels of intimacy, certain levels of sharing, even time spent together.
Mm-hmm.
Because I tell you, most people who end up having a physical attraction to somebody else is usually because they spend an inordinate amount of time with that person, and
Mm-hmm.
you get to know them. There's a cleaving, right, of souls. There's a bonding of souls, rather, where because of time spent together, then you're gonna that bond can escalate to something that can become, risky. I think people, what was the term they have it now? Catching feelings.
That's it.
You have to be wary that you might be catching feelings, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of relationships start off very innocent. No, we're just spending overtime at work, working on this project, and got coffee, go for coffee or something, and you're having all kind of recreational time together, and you're doing work. But while you're having work, you are sharing, and things can escalate. So, as was said before, boundaries very important. You have to draw a line of demarcation. You have to be careful that certain things you don't get caught. Like, for example, being somewhere remote together.
Mm-hmm.
I always say, do like Joseph and run. You feel something starting to happen, don't even begin to play with that, because a lot of relationships start from friendship. You know. So yeah, you can have a friend, but if it's someone from the opposite sex, you kind of have your make sure that your radar, your antennas are up and don't get caught unawares.
No, and thank you all for sharing that. The thought came to me also too is that if it comes to a point that if it comes to a point that you can't share certain things with your wife because for whatever reason and whatever might be going on, I guess the boundary is you know is holding yourself back, because if you have somebody on the job, for an example, that's your best friend, if we're not careful, that's where emotional affairs generally can start, because I can't express this to my wife, but this individual, it seems like they have so much compassion for me. So why can't my wife have that same compassion? Why can't she listen to me like this? And if we're not careful, those lines can be blurred. But every man must know within his own self, what's right for him and what's right in his own house. It's again boundaries there. I had best friends before, but when I got married, basically a lot of friends that I used to keep before, I never kept. Some I maybe just didn't trust, but uh, come out from among them and be separate, as the word of God said, right? So I want to save myself, because you know what? I'm a man, and we got hormones sometimes that will fly off in certain situations, certain conversations. So with myself now, you know what? I just draw that line. But there's a scripture that says here too is that husband loves it. Hebrews 5:25, very familiar passage scriptures. Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church. I believe if a husband love the wife as she wants to be loved, as she needs to be loved, as she's craving for that love, then it should open the line of communication, that there should be nothing that she cannot say to her husband and nothing that he cannot say to her. And you know, when you read Ephesians chapter 5, there's 2 or 3 times it goes again, even verse 28, that so ought men again to love their wives as your own bodies, and he that loveth his wife loveth himself. So it's interesting. So when I speak to my wife, if I was supposed to speak to my wife a certain way or whatever the case is, I got to ask myself, why am I speaking to my body like that? Because we are one, and we should have the lines of communication open on a continual basis. So enough of that that part about having a best friend. And while we have a best friend, and those that might have a best friend, first of all, make your wife your priority over everything else. Well, she might say, "What do you mean you're going to hang out with your best friend tonight? You haven't spoken to me all week. This is my week. This is my night. What do you mean you're going to hang out with a best friend? No, I'm not going to go like that." So every man must know what to do basically in their own house. So here's an interesting one. What husband wish your wives to know when it comes to refusing their initiation of sex? Does it go deeper than we think?
Oh, yes.
Tell us about it, Stephen. Refusal.
Okay, so to clarify, we're saying that when she rejects our initiation for sex, right? That's what we're saying.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah, it can be. All right. So when it comes to our love language, right? Most males, we tend to be in the direction of physical touch, right? It's either number one or very close to the top. And so when we are refused, or we are given an excuse, and worse, if it becomes a pattern, then it kind of we take a hit to the ego, right? Because I've heard it said, and I highly agree, men do not want sex, we need sex, because it is part of our makeup. We don't, biologically, we make millions of sperm per day, and forms follows function. So if God created us to be generating this really efficient factory for creating life, then it goes to show that that we were specifically made and geared towards having physical intimacy and having it on a regular basis. So when you're married, one of the expectations that we have as a male is that we're supposed to have uninterrupted, unbarred, uninhibited access, right, to our wives. And the once in a blue moon, we can say, all right, you're tired tonight. But when it becomes a pattern, then it becomes problematic, because you start saying you can't help but say, wow, I'm not attractive anymore. She doesn't love me anymore. You start, and then worse, if you're not given an explanation, a proper explanation, you're gonna start autofilling, and most of the times when we autofill, it's not positive. It's usually more towards a negative.
More negative. And it's true, because the to say a little bit where the wives are concerned, they could very well be saying the same thing too. So what is, I'm not attractive anymore. We're going to touch on that here in a little while, right? So I've said before, if the wife keep on saying no, I've got a headache or whatever, we got a cure for that. It's called Advil or extra strength. Extra strength.
A gentleman once said, "That is not your head I'm interested in."
So there you go, man. That's the remedy for shutting that door if the headache comes up. Go ahead, Noah.
I think in the sense with that, for most men, they place a very high emphasis on sexual intimacy. And I think also along with that, emotional intimacy as well too. So having that that sense of connection and and support and understanding from their spouse. And for most men, a lot of times, we especially if your love language is physical touch,
right?
We communicate as a way of our communication, self-expression from ourselves to our spouse through sexual intimacy. And I think that if that's rejected, now, especially if that, your love language is physical touch, and that's the way how you express yourself as well too, and form that connection with your spouse. When that's declined, now they've just kind of like denied a crucial, important channel of communication for their spouse. So they take that away from them, and now doing that. I mean, that's pretty devastating to a male, where now he's like, this is my main, and I mean, and there's other ways of expressing as well too, right? But I mean, if this is like the main channel of where you actually connect with them, and then that's denied, I mean, I think that could be quite detrimental to the husband,
to the relationship.
Yes, and to the relationship itself. Yeah.
No, if an individual keep on rejecting one, or vice versa, my question is, after so many rejection, first of all, you have to explore what is actually going on that's causing this rejection, rather than just blowing up or whatever the case is. Where is this coming from? It could be something that you might have done unintentionally, unconsciously, and it's raised its head in the bedroom, where it's a turn off, right? But at the same time, you have some men where physical touches, I've seen where it's actually out of the 5 love language, actually down there for number 4. Mine is words of affirmation. Yeah, then we have physical touch, but we all have different areas. But for rejecting on a continual basis, the big question is, so what is going on? Or explore yourself first, search yourself first before we start blaming the other individuals, to find out what's happening in order to get back on the same page again, right? Daniel, did you have anything on that one? So when it comes
definitely wanted to just add a tidbit here. With what has already been said, I think it's important and understated in some cases that wives keep in mind not to use sex refusal as a disciplinary action.
Right.
And that's just being honest.
Right.
There may be the instances that things are taking place, and you don't want to use something like that rather than address the actual issue that is taking place.
Right.
And depending on the circumstances, obviously there's men with different sex drives and what have you. You never know. A man may not want to go, and certainly wouldn't want to be cheating on you with somebody else that they eventually get a relationship with, but maybe the avenue becomes some type of voyeurism or pornography or something like that. And what you don't want to do is be in a situation where your husband no longer wants to even associate with you sexually because of maybe certain replacements that have been taken place because of the rejection and because of the refusal, particularly once the basis is rooted in, oh, he did something, therefore I'm not going to give him anything, right? So I think that is one thing to be very cautious of in dealing with whatever circumstances might be taking place. And the only other thing that I would add is I presume that when we're talking about sex, we're talking about, coitus and really engaging there. And there may be instances that definitely you feel tired and there's certain things just biologically based on the woman and just how body works monthly and time frame that's we can certainly understand, but coitus is not the only way for any type of sexual activity to take root. So maybe it's a matter of saying, I don't want to do this, but I can at least allow myself to do something else or what have you. Right. So having a conversation and considering other sexual practices, activities, methodology, and so on and so forth.
No, thanks for sharing that. And as men, what we have to realize too is the drive that we have, the sex drive that we had at 25, 30, 40, it decreases. I'm told statistically it decreases. So while ours decreases, the female one is increasing in the 30 and 40. I see Stephen shaking his head there, so you must have read something on that too, right? But at the same time, for continual rejection, again, I think I've always said this is, if I'm being continually rejected, then who am I? Who am I gravitating to next? Whose arm is this individual is pushing me into? But again, Daniel, as you said, right, there could be a lot of, excuse me, there could be a lot of factors that's being displayed that maybe a person might be shameful. They want to discuss it. And it could even go back. I've heard individuals going back into childhood that had trauma in their life and were abused in their life, and where you have one mindset and maybe one drive, but for them, because of the and sometimes the person might not even realize that until they actually get into their marriage. If they didn't have I would say, a proper, for lack of better words, if they didn't have a proper or in-depth premarital, those things might not have been found out even after, because it's not something that somebody would want to just bring up in a conversation because of shame, because of guilt, and all the different factors that would try to hold them down.
If you, I just want to jump in on that point, because I think you're making such a very important point, and we know that some of the people that might be tuning in may be considering marriage and may not already be married. And I'm just a firm believer that if you can't get to the place of being able to be completely open with speaking with the person that you say you want to be with forever, maybe it might be a good idea to rethink whether or not this is the person you actually want to be with. Because I can definitely understand shame and difficulty with circumstances that are traumatic experiences, or what you've seen, what you've personally experienced, and what have you. It's difficult for anyone to go through, and you would never want to take away from that. Once you get to the stage of saying, I want to completely share my life with another person, then that is something that potentially can transfer into that relationship. And because it can transfer into that relationship, you have to be at a stage to say, I need to make mention of this. I need to say something, or even give certain, what would I say? Certain generalizations. Maybe you're not completely prepared, but you're moving in the direction of being able to have certain conversations that are necessary and crucial. Because if and or when they come up in the relationship, it could be a very difficult circumstance to deal with at that time, grappling with the feelings that you have for somebody, but then the things that were not said, were not shared, and those things can be at conflict, at odds, and can cause some serious problems.
No, absolutely. Thanks again for sharing that. I've heard individuals say, it's been said also that, should I tell my partner everything? Should they know everything about me before, all the secrets before we get married? Just jump into premarital here a little bit. But, my thoughts on that is, if it's going to raise its head down the road and be a challenge and cause a shifted dynamics where the love is concerned, then yeah, it should be something that should be discussed, because maybe this is what's going to prevent you, or it's either going to make you stronger, it's either going to make you weaker, it's going to make you make that decision whether this is for me or it's not for me, right? But it's better to hurt now than to hurt later, because when you hurt later, you might be having 2-3 children that's involved in a relationship now, and this is something that you just cannot deal with. So very, very important to bring up these points of what's in our past, and should I bring it up? Should I keep it a secret? Be vulnerable, open up, and have those conversations where you can be naked and not ashamed. So that leads into what husband wish your wives knew when it comes to the wives comparing themselves, because now they have children, things are not fitting like they used to. She's not feeling confident in herself. What would you want wives to know where that is concerned? Go ahead.
Okay. What I would like wives to know is that we appreciate our wives, our spouses, beyond just their physical attributes.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to take the mindset that men are all about visuals, but yeah, yeah, initially visual is what's gonna pull us, but what makes us stay is how a woman makes us feel. So those intangible qualities um, often bring a great amount of merit for us because at the end of the day, we can go out there and get a pretty girl if we want to. Well, so in general, where if beauty is what we're looking for, you can always go somewhere for it, you know. But what makes us stay and decide to come home from work every day instead of stopping at the bar or some other recreational gathering is knowing that okay, when I'm coming home to someone who cares, loves me, has high thoughts of me, care to
Mm-hmm.
make sacrifices for me, and someone who generally makes me feel loved and cherished. So yeah, and any reasonable male would understand that as we get older, that our bodies are going to change, and you're supposed to be able to be mature enough to make that mental leap and that emotional leap to know that um I don't look the way that I used to look 20 years ago, and she won't look the way that she looked 20 years ago. So reality check is that we if we have any level of emotional connection, real love, then it's supposed to understand and deal with the fact that we're gonna age, we're gonna look different. I remember telling my wife years ago that I knew that she was the one because I could easily imagine myself being old with her, like sitting on you know, on the porch in a rocking chair or whatever the equivalent, future equivalent will be, and just sipping coffee and just having like really deep conversations. Yeah, so we do appreciate women for more than just their looks. But let me quickly add to that as well that not because we're getting older doesn't mean that we don't need to try and, spice up things and do
Okay.
what you can, you
Okay.
know, do, do what you can.
It's interesting what you said. Do what you can and try to spice things up. I seen a clip just the other day. You know how she comes out of the shower at 25, how she comes out of the shower at 35, how she comes out of the shower at 50 with a tie head and long gowns and everything else. I figured
Don't give up. Yeah, don't give up that quickly.
so. I thought it was pretty humorous, right? But something you mentioned which is very valid, right? Is that you said when it comes to us men, we're pulled because of what we see, because we're visual creatures, right? That's why the Bible talks about, if we look at a woman and to lust that we have sinned. So visual pulls us, and what really keeps us is, you mentioned being emotionally attracted, but it's character that I believe also holds us, right? So after the visual, the visual might be great, but the character is just not there. But when you have the visual and the character, and some will see the other way around, even too, Steve, for they might see the character of the individual, and then
Okay.
the visual will actually come second. So I guess we're all wired different of how we see the other sex in our own eyes, right? Anything else from Neville and Daniel before we move on?
So what I would say is that I fully support and understand the changes that the body makes. With age, with having children, the one thing I would say, or a few points, would be where if there is a complaint about it, where
Mhm.
they're not happy about it, that accept, like look for a solution, or if I present a solution, or if your spouse presents a solution,
Mhm.
to try that. So I mean, because I know sometimes it can get to the and I don't know if I get in trouble for this, but like, you know,
Go ahead.
and not from my spouse personally, but just overall, whereas like, you know, you always say, well, you know, I've had children, this and that, but then you'll see where others have been able to bounce back. And I look at it as where you don't have to be like how you were, but I think one thing, like for me personally, that I can respect is the effort. So I
Right.
look at the effort. If you're actually making the attempt,
Right.
plus allowing me to support you, so not sticking in this problem, saying this is an issue where it's causing a rift now, where now it's affecting different areas, even with intimacy, right? Because that becomes an issue as well too. It starts to affect intimacy. So I think not settling in the problem, but finding a solution, and then, you know, obviously husbands support your wives with that effort. So even if you know you're not one that really exercises, for example, you know, start joining them. You could do things together, where going for walks together, doing routine like workout routines and so forth. But yeah, I'm just like I'm really big into like not settling or giving into it, being content with where you are and still complaining about it, and then and not finding solutions. So I think, yeah, it's important to acknowledge that. And then, yeah, in the end, I think, I mean, for me personally, I think effort is a really big thing. Like if you're making effort and the progress is really slow, I'm fine, because you're actually taking the time and making the effort to do something about it, versus continue to complain about me about, you know, how you look or what
The weight and
your body's like.
everything.
Especially also if it starts affecting other areas as well too.
Right. So I'm going to be the devil's advocate here, though, right? Because we want to see them make the effort. Some women that are listening, some ladies, wives that are listening, they'll probably say, "You haven't got a clue what I have to put up with and do all day." So I go to work. Okay, we're working because that's just the way it is. We both have to work. But there's times I got to come home. I got to cook the meal. There's time when the children are, because the other party is working, whatever the case is, that I've still got to take the children out to their different school activities. I've got to make time to have fun time with them along with the family. And after all that, where in the world am I supposed to find time to even have some time for myself and have some downtime and go to the gym? But I believe we will actually never. Your wife told me something here some time back, and man, I live by it. She said to us some time back is that people prioritize things that are important to them. So if it's important to me, if it's important to you somehow or another, we will try to fit that in our schedule, because if it's important to me, it's important to you. So let's figure out how we can make this work. So, you know, so I thank her for that clip. I've used that so many times, and it's just stuck in my head now, right? So
where do you think she gets that from, you know? I'm just saying, you know.
She didn't tell me where it came from, okay? But I'm gonna bounce back with that.
I can I quickly add that what Neville said, it really applies to a lot. Even as he was saying, I was thinking how much it applies to pretty much everything in marriage. If there's any weak point in your marriage, and if it's important enough for you, work on it, and your spouse will appreciate the effort. I mean, for years I used to think, if I can't just fix the thing, you know, like right there and
Right.
then there's no use focusing on it. I have more important things to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that was so stupid of me, because I'm like, I don't have to fix it today. I don't have to fix it next week. I don't have to fix it 1 month from now. I can gradually, I can work on it, and you know, just make the effort.
Mm-hmm.
And if the progress is not fast,
Right.
it will accumulate. And many times when our spouse sees us making the effort, they will be like, okay, he's trying, you know. And I found that to be true with my wife. When she sees me making effort, even if I'm really not, you know, moving as fast as I think I should, she appreciates it, you know, and she tells me, you know.
No, absolutely. It's much easier too, rather than us expecting the wife to find the gym or to work out or whatever. How nice it would be if we make the time to try to do it little by little together. I think that goes a long ways, because it seems like it could come across as if we're trying to push her into this thing because she needs to get exercise, and not just about the exercise. I think it's just about just being healthy in general, right? Just being healthy in general, because some can carry the weight and they just find it hard just to get rid of that. But at least if we support them in what they're doing, I think it speaks more volume than trying to push them into a gym or trying to push them out to walk. So support is just extremely important where that's concerned. Then,
Even if it's like taking up other things as well too, like supporting in regards to like, all right, you're gonna go and do this activity, whatever. I'll cook, or I'll take care of the kids, or I'll do something. So I think finding that balance, like looking at each other's schedule and seeing, okay, how can we make this work where we are both benefiting and one is not being neglected over the other.
Making time. Thank you. Daniel, before we move on, are you good?
And as things are being said, one of the things that I'm thinking about is circling back to the conversation of refusal for sex. One of the things that sometimes happens is, as you mentioned with the devil's advocate conversation, well, I'm working, then I have to come home and take care of the children, and I have to cook and so on and so forth. I don't have time to go to the gym or get some type of a workout. I also don't have time to feel up adequately sexually ready, prepared to move in that direction. And what I have found in my personal experience and also in hearing other people is, once I've been able to take on some of the responsibilities with chores, get more into cooking. And my wife is a wonderful cook. I can cook enough to survive, and I'm fine with that, right?
Okay.
But she will appreciate the efforts that are there. And not only is the effort appreciated, it's also time that is not expended in those avenues, which leaves her to have space and time to herself. And then when it's bedtime, she's still awake. She's still awake. I'm sure there's some activities that we both might want to mutually engage in, right? And so some of these things that I think sometimes where the refusal does come into play is just a matter of what time frame is there to feel even it's just a minute to take for yourself. And so whether it's from a sexual standpoint, whether it's from a time to be able to go, and also even in joining together with working out and exercises, there's something about working out and exercising together. There's a level of, I think, intimacy that's being built in a particular way that way, and often translates to sexual activity as well. So what we're talking about, I think some of these are coming full circle to a particular extent.
No. As you're speaking there, also creating acts of intimacy and again, working out together, that's creating active intimacy there. And also the support where she doesn't have to do everything. There's individuals out there that I know that it's like the wife have to do this and to do that, and it's just draining. And then like you mentioned, so at the end of the night, now you want me to be able to perform. Well, it's not going to work like that. No aspirin or Advil is going to take this away. You know what? I didn't get the support when I needed, so you know what? I'm
no aspirin, no Advil, no prayer.
I need, and you can hear unconsciously screaming out, I need your support. We need to do this together. We started as one, and now we're going to continue on as one. So I need the support, which is amazing.
Can I add one last thing on that?
Yeah. Who's that?
Just the other thing too is especially when it comes to feeling tired or overworked. I see it like this. For example, you get home, you're feeling tired. Say, for example, you both get home late, dishes aren't done. Listen, if you're both tired and there's nothing wrong, and I know, I'll probably get blown up with this sometimes where it's like, no, you can't go to bed with the dishes in there. But sometimes, honestly, if it stays overnight or the laundry or whatever, let it sit another day. It's fine. You know what I mean? Deal with it tomorrow versus both individuals being tired or one being tired or, I mean? Especially if you both can't do it.
Right.
So I think that everything doesn't have to be done while you're tired. If you're tired, then eliminate some of the stuff at least that day that you're doing, so you're not as tired.
No, Yeah, there's absolutely some things can wait. Does it have to be done? Does it have to be done right away? Um, Agreed, and I'm sure there's a lot out there that also agree with you where that's concerned. So as we move on here to, so I've heard this a lot in the background also. So what would the husband want the wives to know when it comes to them being a leader physically and spiritually? There's a lot of ladies out there that they feel that they're leading spiritually and they're waiting for the husband to step up to that plate where they can be significant in as a physical leader and also a spiritual leader. So what would you want wives to know when it comes to husband being the leader physically and spiritually?
Just for clarity on that, is that being a leader like in the traditional sense, like being like the traditional husband?
Being as a leader. So because we're all Christians here too, but even outside of that, being a leader as being the head of the home. What would you want the wives to know as you be the leaders of how you're leading the home, not just physically, not just with decisions, but also spiritually. What would you want them to know when it comes to that? Because a lot that I've heard, and I'm just going by that, is and individuals that I've had connection with, husbands they don't feel they're leading physically, and they're not leading spiritually, and they're taking a lot of the burden.
Well, what happened in the home is that a lot of men are, in one way or another, are not trained or prepared to fully take on the role and the capacity of a leader. When it comes to, I'm not sure in many other cultures, but I know in Jamaica a lot of households are headed by females, and what happened is boys tend to grow up with some sort of gap in terms of knowing how to fill that space of being a male, to fully take on all the roles and responsibilities of a male. So sometimes what would happen is that they would simply look at a relationship as just being about sex and spending time together and hanging out. But in terms of the responsibilities and the depth of being responsible, that is often overshadowed with trying to, having a good time. So when their spouse, bring up something that is critical or serious, they tend to like, why are you messing with the vibe? We had a good thing going on here, and now you're talking about, and so oftentimes that stems from simply not having had that model, that father model, that leadership model being presented, being walked out before us, and when that is present, wow, there's a serious crisis between spouses, because females tend to grow up with that model of, okay, things are serious here. We have a family, we have kids to take care of, and they kind of have their head on their shoulder. In relatively on a greater scale in relation to men. Although some people might differ, they can differ, but my observation is that women tend to take certain things more serious. They are very concerned about the future of their family. They're concerned about things like insurance. They're concerned
Right.
about things like savings, 401k, taxes, the real gravity of life, whereas men, unfortunately, we spend an inordinate disproportionate amount of years focusing on fun, PlayStation, auto, spruce up your car, something, those kind of things. But we don't tend to focus very quickly and grasp very quickly the notion that, look here, I need to get serious here. I need to make sure that this, that, and that is in place, and that leadership, role that we're supposed to play, that strong leadership role, is often absent because of that, because it goes back to the family structure that we come from, you know.
No, and thanks for sharing there, Stephen. So, wives are more serious. That's my big takeaway. Wives are more serious about the relationship.
Yeah, they understand the gravity of certain issues.
I understand, more serious about their relationship, and not only that. I mean, I might get in trouble for saying this, but when you have children, you have a son, you have a daughter. Majority of the time, it's the daughter that usually have their head on the shoulder, know exactly where they're going by the time they're 21 or even 18. And sometimes the boys, even at 19, they might be still struggling at 21. They're still trying to figure their way out, 23. And by this time, she's on her way being a doctor. Well, I've just seen this so many times, right? Because they're more serious, not just about relationship, more serious about life in that respect. And that actually transfers over into the relationship. So the husband might think now maybe they're too headstrong because of the drive that they have, which could cause a challenge in the relationship. But if you're going to marry me, you got to have a vision. You got to have a pocketbook. Somebody says you got to have a songbook. You got to know where we're going to be at in 5 years time. I need to know. I'm just not going to pick up anybody and don't have a clue where I'm going to be like in the next 3 or 4 years. So just as the wives are more serious in the earlier stage, so to speak, and the husbands need to be on that same page where that's concerned, so they can lead as God would have them to lead and be the man that God would want them to be, and for them to love the wife as they would want to be loved. Let's go to Daniel or Neville when it comes to what we wish wives want to know when it comes to you being a leader physically and spiritually, and even as spiritual. What does that look like when a man is a leader spiritually, even in a Christian home?
I think one of the main things to make mention, I know obviously the focus is what husbands would want their wives to know, but truthfully, especially as Stephen has outlined, whether it's a matter of the family experience in terms of the upbringing that we've had and so on and so forth, at the end of the day, it's so vitally important for men to do all that they can as best and as much as possible to get that learning, that training, that mentor, and so on and so forth. So as much as there's pieces for the women that we're talking about tonight, I think it's really important for men, speaking from my personal experiences and still learning and growing in this, even after however many years I've been married. It's that crucial. Now to change gears, I think one of the things for the women to know from the husband's perspective is sometimes, if not most times, we probably feel like we're doing things adequately, even if we're not doing it to the expectation that you might have. And so in those instances, it certainly would be of great use and help to point that out, and point that out in a time frame that isn't just after kind of waiting and hoping and having expectations, because oftentimes that does tend to build on frustrations that you may already have, and then it adds a further layer to the dynamics of what you're hoping for, but what is not working out the way that it needs to work out effectively. So I think knowing or having this sense that your husband might actually think that he's doing what he needs to be doing. He might already think that he's leading in that way, and helping him to be aware that no, you're not, or at least you're not to the extent in which that I'm certainly hoping for. Now, sometimes I think the second point, and I'll close off with this, is that the conversation might be difficult, might be confrontational. As men, there's a certain level of ego that might come into play. I'm not saying that's good. It's just a reality of who we are, how we feel.
That's right.
Some of the things being challenged for what we think is going on or what have you. And it might be easier at times, ladies, to connect with another man that you know is trusted by your husband, a father figure, maybe their father, if there's a good relationship with their father-in-law, an older uncle, somebody that's a man that can actually, that you're identifying these issues with, maybe knowing that the conversation might be difficult, but taking it from another avenue, and these men coming in and speaking to their speaking to your husband as a big brother, as a mentor, and maybe bringing up and addressing the circumstances, trying to find out, or encouraging certain things because you know that your husband trusts this particular man that would implement these certain strategies based on the conversation that you're having. So that might be another way to have the conversation without having the conversation leading somewhere that might be difficult to grapple with, depending on where you are and the circumstances that you're engaged in.
So I heard that loud and clear is, I'm trying to do the best I can, basically because of what I know. And there's a lot of men out there that's never had mentors. I've known men that don't have mentors. So they're being thrown into this environment. They've been thrown into this realm of marriage, and they're just trying to figure it out. But to know a little bit more, even about the relationship and whatever, there's so much information out there that's valuable, that can help an individual. But one of the things that I find that's crucial, that will shut down the physical and the spiritual leadership is, how were you mentored, if you were even mentored at all? And another thing, are you even willing to be mentored? Are you that prideful that you don't want nobody to show you your shortcomings, to show where you can elevate a little bit on this side, or whatever the case might be, right? So mentorship is so important, both inside the church, especially inside the church, and outside the church. We need mentors. Go ahead, Neville, and we're coming to a close here in another 5 minutes.
I think another side of it where, what we'd want our wives to know in regards to leading as physically and spiritually, I think, which I think isn't always talked a lot about, is support. When you have your the husband truly trying to lead and truly trying to lead physically and spiritually, to provide that support, encouragement, and appreciation. So support that, you do see that he's actually trying, and actually allowing him to do that as well, and then encouraging through the process. And I think encouragement and appreciation goes a long way. I think as much as the wife needs that, to show that everything that she's doing around the household or with the family, that she's getting that encouragement and appreciation and support. I think the husband needs that as much, because you go out there and say you're working long hours, back-breaking work if it is, maybe even the job that you hate, but you're doing, and you're making the necessary sacrifices to provide for your family.
Right.
And I think, when you come home from that, and like I said, you're trying to fulfill your roles, and you come home and, you don't get that peace, or, you're hearing this or hearing that, or, it can be pretty defeating and deflating. And I think, obviously you still want to do your fulfill your responsibilities as the leader in your household. But I think, that's the other side of it, is that, as men that are truly trying and actually doing something to have that recognized, and appreciate them and support them. Because I think with that support and encouragement and appreciation, I think it makes you want to actually do more. It's almost like you're fostering growth. Think about when you speak, or you do something and you do it really well, and they're like, man, that was such a good job. Like, man, I didn't know you had skills like that, or something. And like, they kind of blow your head up a little bit. Like,
absolutely.
And then what does that do then? Even with kids, right? What does that do? Now they want to do it again, or do it even better, right? So I think by doing that, and even if he's not on point, like 100% on point, but I think, and I'm not saying supporting the bad, like of what he's doing wrong, but like supporting where, like, you're there with him, maybe make a suggestion or encourage him, is like, I think that can go quite a long ways, and make a difference in the impact in his role of being the leader of his household.
So when it comes to spiritual leadership, how is the wife expecting that to show up when it comes to the husband?
We have more time.
We'll continue with this, and I think it's important.
Yes. Well, I wanted to make this point because it's something that happened very recently. All right. So we're talking about leadership, and in terms of, well, I'm going to touch on the spiritual aspect of leadership. All right. So about 2 days ago, or is it a day ago? 2 days ago, my daughter came up and she was, she was expressing to me that she was feeling overwhelmed because she had two exams the
Okay.
following day and that she was behind on studying. And so she, she wanted to pull an all-nighter to, kind of catch up. And we started studying with her mother and they were going through, the papers and, trying to really understand some of the harder parts of the topics. And at some point she just crashed. She fell asleep, and all my attempts to wake her were rebuffed. And the weird thing is, in the morning she woke up and she was having a meltdown. She was like, "Why didn't you wake me?" I'm like, "I tried to wake you up. You would not wake up." That simply told me that you needed the sleep. So I wasn't going to wake you as much as you have an exam. And she was having a meltdown. And I started to feel like I was having a meltdown because when my family is not okay, it really affects me.
Absolutely.
And I'm there, I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? How am I gonna fix this? Because it's like automatically think I need to fix this. And then I just like I don't know something outside of myself. I looked up and I'm like, God, I do not know what to do. What to do.
Mhm.
And it's like I heard her voice. I said, pray, just pray, just pray. And I found myself starting to pray for her, and I'm like, God, please give her tranquility, give her peace, help her work all of this together for good for her, allow her to see you work this out for her. I
Mhm.
was praying for her. And so on the way to work, I was dropping her off to school and we were still studying with her. And even then, she started, I don't know, it's like she started not, instead of panicking, she was, going over the material and she sounded calmer. And then by the time I picked her up in the afternoon from school, she ran to me and gave me a bear hug and
Mhm.
said, "Thank you for praying for me. Thank you."
Okay.
One of the exams was postponed. They never gave the exam. And the one that she was spent most time studying, that's the one that she
Mhm.
got. And she said she did well. She thinks she did well on it. It
Beautiful.
was fairly
Beautiful.
manageable. And,
Mhm.
and, and I'm looking at something like that and I'm saying, God, I really appreciate you teaching me,
Mhm.
certain principles that everything starts in the spirit realm. And once you get the grasp of that,
Right.
you begin to realize that whenever your family is in a crisis,
Mhm.
your first impetus is to not to panic, not to say, okay, I'm going to throw money at the problem or whatever. It's simply to pray. Because sometimes even when we think we know what the solution is,
Right.
we
Right.
err because the Bible says, do not lean on your own understanding.
Understanding.
Sometimes the way to solve the problem is not the way that common sense or intuition would tell you to solve it.
Mhm.
So we always have to bring our family in prayer, and that is a ministry. That is there's a place where everybody in the family can pray, but there's a special place for us as a male to pray for our families.
I truly believe that every male and every husband needs to, as you mentioned, quite adequately there, seek God first. The most precious things that a wife could see is when she has a man, especially if he's in the church, as we're all Christians here, but when she has a man that knows how to pray, a man that knows how to touch God. So before we close off, I'll take one more comment from either Neville or Daniel about spiritual leadership. What should that look like? You'd want the wives to know where husbands are concerned. What husband wish their wives would know when it comes to spiritual leadership.
Well, I think a lot of what Stephen said really captured some very important thoughts. I think, in addition to what he said with respect to prayer, I think thinking through and having spiritual insight to the nature of your children, who they are, and speaking prayerfully but confidently into who they are, what they're able to be, what they're able to accomplish, not just positive reinforcement, but spiritually with a sense of awareness of what God is able and capable to do in their lives, and looking, to God to give you insight to say, what is it, what areas that they are able to maneuver in, and so on, so that you can then speak directly to that in them. I think that's a very crucial and important thing for understanding a spiritual aspect as well. So just that for me.
Train up a child in the way that he should go, and when they're old, they will not depart. So what they see, never I'll have to go here, but what they see is what they're going to emulate down the road. What they see now is what they're going to take after down the road. And it's so beautiful because they're going to have challenges in their life, and the world is not going to solve some of these issues that's going to come upon them. But when they pray, God will hear, because the Bible said, seek ye first the kingdom of God and all of his righteousness, and all these things that the Gentiles seek. So basically, these things shall follow you. So seek the kingdom first. Gentlemen, we are out of time. I think we pretty well covered everything here, just by the conversation that we had. We didn't touch on forgiveness, but we talked a bit about, say, validation. And, us men like to be validated. We like to be told that we're doing a good job. Guys like to be told that. Well, ladies, we like to be told that too. We're saying, honor our love language, and we're there to honor your love language. And for those men that's out there and ladies that don't know what their love language is, you know what? You can easily find it out. So I am your host. We thank you, Stephen. We thank you, Danielle. We thank you, Neville, for chiming in, for spending the time with me here tonight. And ladies and gentlemen, those that are listening, I'm your host, Bonitto Grange, your relationship and life coach. We thank you for tuning in tonight. May God bless you. And if you'd like to continue some of these conversations and some challenges that you might be having in your life, you can also check out my website at tlcbonittogrange.com, and we can have more conversation or discovery session at no cost to you. So feel free to do that. God bless each and every one of you, no matter where you are in the world. May the blessings of the Lord be upon you. Maybe you'll be prosperous as we look forward to another beautiful day tomorrow. Thank you again, gentlemen, and God bless.
God bless.